Hello, and welcome to Book 5, Chapter 1 of You Should Be Reading. This week, I'd like to talk to you about Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is one of the books that I was challenged to read in the I Should Be Reading. I've got it read, and it is quite good. I enjoyed it quite a lot. It's one of those ones that I'd always heard about. Heard about that, it's this big fantasy thing. Brandon Sanderson being the author who took over for the late Robert Jordan to finish the Wheel of Time series. That kind of gave him a boost, even though I think he was already a rather well-known author in the first place. Still, regardless, it's what gave him a bit more of a boost to his popularity, and I was interested in checking out Mistborn. Just never got around to it until I goaded myself into it. Now, what Mistborn is all about this world that apparently a hero rose to save the world from ancient darkness called the Deepness or something. And he did. He saved the world, and then he basically owned the place and became the Lord Ruler. Immortal, all-powerful, and you jump ahead several thousand years, and we've got the Lord Ruler ruling over everything. The world is a horrible place with certain people named skaa, S-K-A-A, that are basically nothing but slaves. Um, and there's a lot of discontent going on. Also, the fact that ash falls from the sky all the time. There's just ash everywhere. There's no greenery uh, really anywhere that you can see because there's hardly any sunlight. The plants that do grow, they're stunted and withered, and it's just a nasty, nasty world. And we've got a young man, or not exactly a young man, but we've got a fellow. Where is he? Um, I forget the guy's name. Just off the top of my head. Where is it? It's in here somewhere. Kelsier. Kelsier, that's it. He's the one you first end up running into. Kelsier, the survivor of this horrible place. These pits of Hathsin, where they were used to mine out these crystals and whatnot. Well, he is he is a young man with big dreams. He used to be the head of a thieving crew before he got captured and sent off to these pits. And now he's back and he wants to overthrow the Lord Ruler. So he gathers together a bunch of people to do that in this big quest. And one of them is a young lady by the name of Vin, I believe. Vin, who seems to have her own little powers. And she ends up coming to find out that it's Allomancy, the magic system, whereby ingesting metal, the different types of metal, there's like 3 or 4 different kinds somewhere in here. It's listed at one point. But they got these metals that they ingest, like gold and iron and steel and zinc and copper and whatnot. And they do different things. They allow people to basically fly by pushing and pulling things to them, pushing away from big metal things to cause them to do this. They can inflame people's emotions or dampen them down, as well as being able to sense and see magic, and prevent people from knowing that you're doing magic, among other things. Amazing little things going on about that with the magic system and how all the metals kind of work together. I believe there's actually 10 metals all in all. One of which being there's like 8 base metals and then there's 2 higher metals that do some strange things. And it's kind of a plot point around a couple of them. So I'm not going to get into too much detail on the magic system. But the characters, that's what really gets me in this. The characters are quite interesting because this book doesn't read so much like fantasy as it does more like a heist movie. Um, what it put me most in mind of was a very fantasy themed Ocean's 11. in that regard. And anyone who's seen the Ocean's 11 movies um, will kind of know what those are like. I've actually covered them in a big and small screens episode, but it's very interesting in how all the characters start working together. Uh, you get people with very specialized abilities in one of these metals, and you've got Vin, who is a Mistborn, who's able to use all of them because it's either one or all. Nobody can use like two different ones. No, it's one metal or all of them. And she ends up finding out she's a Mistborn. She's one of the ones that can use all of them, just like Kelsier. So he starts training her, and she's a thief from down in the gutters. Um, and she's been living quite on her own for a while, ever since her brother betrayed her by leaving her. Said he was going to betray her, and did, just abandoned her to her own devices. And she doesn't really trust anybody, and she gets roped along in on this because Kelsier has some ideas and plans on developing her. So she gets to learn all of this new magic that she's always had and never really known, but as well as learning about other aspects of the culture. So it's a great introduction to the world because it does flow through all of those different stratas of society. Um, and I'm not going to spoil how it ends. Absolutely not, so don't even look about that. The last fourth of the book is where things start really get interesting. The first three quarters is kind of a nice build up, but it's a very interesting build up in what it all entails. Because Vin, she ends up becoming the daughter or niece of this one of the members of the crew who is pretending to be a lord from some other aspect, from some other far reaches of the world, uh, who's here trying to make some inroads in the capital city. So Vin takes on the role of the niece and starts going to balls and being introduced to noble life and all this and that, and ends up meeting and falling for one of the high noble family's sons. So it's really quite interesting in that regard. There's a lot of this little kind of a romantic subplot between those two, uh, as well as the whole main plot of their attempt to steal the city and steal the Lord Ruler's metal reserves, which allow him to basically have so much wealth and power, and all this and that. But Kelsier being the one who started it all and put it all together, he's playing another game entirely, and the others aren't really sure about him. So you get the wonderful, what are you doing? Why is he doing that? Sort of biplot happening between the other characters, and it gets really interesting. I quite enjoyed the book. Um, as they say, highly recommended right here on the cover. Definitely worth your time. If you like fantasy, if you like the Ocean's 11 movies, that style of multi-character uh, fantasy in here. Um, it also kind of reminded me, almost but not quite, of David Eddings and the Belgariad and the Malorian, the Tumuli and the Elenium and the Redemption of Alphalis. Those books where you've got multiple characters, each with their own wild and varied personalities, um, kind of having to work together and intermingle and relying on each other's strengths and weaknesses. It's similar to that, but where Eddings has his stuff, where it kind of doesn't feel like the good guys can lose in a lot of Eddings. Uh, in this one with Brandon Sanderson, there isn't that feeling. It never feels like that the good guys are always going to win, um, because there's this almost dour darkness kind of hanging over the whole novel because it's such a bleak world that's being presented here. That kind of colors this particular story and how it all goes. It really, it really makes it seem like at any point, any of these main characters that we're reading about, they could die at any point. So it adds a little bit more of that realistic bent to the fantasy that I quite enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to checking out the next one in the Mistborn series. Definitely. But we'll have to wait and see on that because I've got other books to read. Uh, my to be read list is quite large. Uh, so yes, that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please give that like button a tap. Give that subscribe button a tap as well if you haven't already, so you can be kept apprised of when I do new videos. Uh, and ring the bell too. Apparently that's a thing now with YouTube, ringing the bell. So uh, do that, I guess, as well if you're subscribing. I usually try and get at least one video out a week. That is my promise. I will do at least one a week, but I usually get more out. And throw a comment in the comment section. Have you read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson? Do you know any of his other works that you think I might be interested in, based on what I've read already? Or just any other authors, any other fantasy stories, kind of in the same vein as this one? Throw that comment in the comment section. Let me know. I'd love to get a discussion going with some people. And until next time, my friends, remember, you should be reading Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. And I'll see you next time.